They said it was over. They said Justin Baldoni had lost that. Blake Lively had finally won, that every headline from TMZ to Rolling Stone told the same story. But what if I told you the truth is completely different? What if I told you the so-called missed deadline never actually happened and the court clock hasn't even started ticking yet? Tonight, we're breaking through the media illusion, uncovering the secret legal twist that changes everything. This isn't just another Hollywood battle. This is a shocking game of manipulation, power, and truth that the press doesn't want you to hear. The headlines came fast and loud, splashed across every outlet from TMZ to People magazine, Rolling Stone to the New York Post, each one repeating the same chorus: that Justin Baldoni had missed his appeal deadline, that Blake Lively had emerged victorious, that this entire case was over before it even began. And for millions scrolling through their feeds, it looked like the end of the story, but it wasn't even close, because buried beneath that glossy wave of PR-friendly spin was a truth so meticulously hidden, so legally intricate, that only those who actually read the judge's ruling would understand this fight is far from finished. And if anything, it's about to escalate. The media painted Baldoni as defeated, claiming he let the clock run out on his chance to appeal Judge Lyman's dismissal of his cross-complaint. What they failed to tell you was that the clock hasn't even started ticking, according to attorney Ron Zambrano, a man who has handled major employment and defamation cases across California. The court's order made it clear that the appeal window doesn't begin until after the judge rules on Lively's own motion for fees, the very motion that could run into the hundreds of millions, meaning the supposed deadline that everyone claimed Baldoni missed doesn't even exist. Yet the judge himself stated that the timing for any appeal will start only after his ruling on that pending motion, and that detail changes everything. This isn't speculation. It's written right there in black and white, and yet somehow not one major outlet chose to explain it. Instead, they all ran the same narrative: that the case was done, that Baldoni had lost, that Blake had walked away untouched, when in reality the legal process is still unfolding. And those who understand federal appellate procedure know that filing too early can actually backfire the appellate. Courts are strict to the letter. If you file before the judgment is final, your notice of appeal can be thrown out as premature, and that's exactly why Baldoni's team didn't file anything yet. It's not a mistake, it's strategy, and it's lawful precision. And to make that even more clear, Baldoni recently brought on powerhouse appellate attorney Alexandra Shapiro, whose career has been built on navigating these high-level legal labyrinths. People at that level don't just forget to file, they know the rulebook inside and out, and that's where the real story lies. This entire frenzy over a so-called missed deadline wasn't about law. It was about perception. It was about creating a public illusion that Blake Lively had crushed her opponent, when in fact the court hasn't even opened the door to the appeal yet. And when you think about how fast and coordinated that media push was, it raises uncomfortable questions. How did every outlet get it wrong in the exact same way? How did they all suddenly decide to run the same misleading headline at the same moment? The answer becomes clearer when you look at the pattern, the timing, the tone, the sources. It reads less like journalism and more like a Hollywood PR campaign designed to rewrite the narrative before the truth could catch up. This is the world Blake Lively operates in, one where image means everything, where the story told to the press matters more than the story unfolding in court. And as Zambrano explained, the tactic isn't new celebrities, and their handlers know how to flood the media cycle with carefully framed headlines to tilt public perception. They know how to push a win that isn't real, because in the entertainment business, perception is profit. If people believe she won, and for a few days that illusion worked, the internet declared victory for Blake and moved on. But the court docket tells another story, one that's still being written, and now with Baldoni's team regrouping, with new legal firepower and the appellate clock still frozen. This so-called victory might end up being one of the most premature celebrations Hollywood has ever seen. The real question now isn't whether Justin Baldoni missed a deadline, it's why so many people wanted you to think he did. As the media kept spinning the story of defeat, Justin Baldoni stayed silent. While behind the scenes, his legal team worked methodically, preparing for what could be the most strategic appeal Hollywood has seen in years. The public didn't see the late-night meetings, the quiet coordination, the legal chess being played with precision. Because to understand this fight, you have to see how far the other side is willing to go. This isn't just about a lawsuit anymore. It's about power, influence, and control. It's about who gets to shape the truth when the truth itself threatens the empire. And attorney Ron Zambrano made that clear the moment he stepped in to analyze what was really happening. He explained that federal appellate procedure is complex intentionally, so it's designed to keep order to prevent chaos, but it's also a shield one that can be used by those who know how to read between the lines. Judge Lyman's ruling clearly paused the appeal clock because of Blake Lively's own pending motion for fees, meaning no appeal deadline exists yet. But while that ruling sat in plain view, the mainstream headlines ignored it. Instead, they amplified a false narrative that Baldwin missed his chance, fueling a wave of public opinion that buried the truth under sensational headlines. And when you look closer, it's not hard to see why PR teams know that public perception can crush a case faster than any legal ruling. They know that if they make the world believe he lost before the appeal even begins, they've already shifted the energy in their favor, and that's exactly what happened. News outlets ran with headlines like Baldoni misses, appeal deadline, and Blake Lively victorious, while influencers and commentators repeated the same talking points, creating an echo chamber of misinformation. But in reality, Baldoni's legal window is still wide open, and his hiring of one of the nation's top appellate lawyers proves that this is not over, not even close. And that's when the story takes an even darker turn. Because while the press focused on a non-existent deadline, something far more serious was unfolding beneath the surface. Blake's legal team had begun expanding their scope, casting a net over anyone who dared to talk about the case. And Andy Signor was one of them, a journalist and content creator, suddenly pulled into the storm. He described being subpoenaed by Lively's team, even though he wasn't listed in their own disclosure documents. Perez, Hilton Candace Owens, and even author Colleen Hoover were all listed as having information. Yet somehow Andy was still being pursued, a clear sign that this wasn't about facts. It was about intimidation. It was about control. Ron Zambrano didn't mince words. He called it a chilling tactic, one meant to scare journalists into silence, to make examples out of those who report on powerful people. And if that sounds extreme, it's because it is. Zambrano explained that celebrities often instruct their lawyers to use every legal and PR lever available, not necessarily to win the case, but to win the perception, to flood the system with pressure until the truth gets drowned out. And that's what makes this case so unnerving, because even as Baldoni's team followed procedure by waiting for the appeal clock to begin, the opposing side was working overtime to paint him as finished, to silence critics, and to twist the narrative into something that fit their brand. This wasn't just a legal tactic, it was a PR operation, and it worked for a while. The public believed it. The fans believed it. The casual observers believed that Blake Lively had defeated Justin Baldoni once and for all. But now, with the legal truth starting to surface, that illusion is cracking. The judge's own words make it clear the 30-day window has not started, and yet the headlines keep repeating the lie. It's a pattern that shows just how powerful perception can be in Hollywood, and how easily misinformation can shape public opinion. The reality is that Justin Baldoni is still very much in this fight. And as Ron Zambrano pointed out, he's surrounded by professionals who operate at the highest level, who do not make amateur mistakes. If there was a deadline, it would have been met instantly. It's a 2-page form, a simple filing that costs a few $100s. It's not something you forget. It's something you plan. And when you see the silence from Baldoni's camp, it's not defeat, it's strategy. Because when the appellate clock finally begins, that's when the next phase starts, and the stakes will be higher than ever. This case is no longer just about a defamation claim. It's about exposing how media manipulation and celebrity power collide. It's about the chilling reach of legal intimidation against journalists and creators who dare to speak up. And as we watch this story evolve, it's becoming clear that the so-called missed deadline was never the ending. It was the setup, the calm before the next storm. And then it hit everyone like a tidal wave. The revelation that turned a simmering legal feud into a cultural earthquake. It started quietly. A few whispers from courthouse insiders, a few cryptic posts on industry boards. But then the truth began to crystallize. Justin Baldoni had not missed his deadline because the court had not yet finalized discovery. And Blake Lively's team knew that they had been spinning a half-truth, feeding the press a narrative designed to paint Baldoni as careless and desperate. But when the docket updates came through, it was clear the judge hadn't even ruled on the extension request, meaning there was no technical violation, no missed filing, no fatal blow. Instead, what the press had run with was Blake's legal PR machine, working overtime, leaking partial context to friends in the entertainment press to gain sympathy and frame her as the victim again. And this time it backfired spectacularly because independent analysts legal podcasters, and even former prosecutors began pointing out the holes in her story. They dissected the court record line by line, realizing that the deadline was self-imposed by Blake's own motion, a trick often used to create artificial urgency, but not legally binding. And suddenly, Baldoni didn't look like the man who dropped the ball. He looked like the man who was playing chess while everyone else was still learning checkers. And as the timeline unraveled, the internet erupted. Hashtags like "justice" for Baldoni and "Blake exposed" began trending overnight. Fans started comparing the inconsistencies, the quotes from her lawyers, the way every statement seemed rehearsed and contradictory. And when Ron Zambrano's office finally broke silence, saying, "We have complied with every filing deadline per the court's instruction," the house of cards began to fall because people started asking if Blake's entire case was built on perception rather than proof. The real story turned out to be darker, more manipulative than anyone expected. Baldoni's team had quietly been gathering digital forensics metadata emails, timestamps, proving that key evidence had been withheld from them under false pretenses. And when those findings were submitted in sealed exhibits, insiders claim the judge's demeanor changed completely from irritated to intrigued, as if the scales had tipped. And then there was the most damning part, the whisper that certain messages Blake's team claimed never existed were actually recoverable from cloud storage. A source claimed that the metadata matched messages exchanged between Blake's assistant and a journalist right before the first negative article about Baldoni dropped. That meant this wasn't random bad press. This was a coordinated defamation attempt disguised as journalism, and the judge reportedly demanded clarity on who authorized those communications. Now, the question wasn't whether Baldoni missed a deadline, it was whether Blake Lively manipulated the media to sway the court of public opinion before the actual evidence was even heard by. Now the public perception had flipped. The very machine that had protected Blake for years began to malfunction. Influencers stopped. Defending her journalists refused to publish her team's anonymous sources, and fans began noticing how silent Ryan Reynolds had become. He who once laughed off every scandal now looked distant, even embarrassed at premieres, because no matter how they tried to spin it, the narrative was gone. Baldoni wasn't the villain anymore. He was the survivor of a smear campaign. And as more legal experts came forward explaining how discovery deadlines are often flexible, especially in high-profile civil suits, the illusion shattered. The story that Blake's team sold to the media was pure strategy, but they underestimated the internet's appetite for truth. The moment the judge ordered a supplemental filing review, it was over. The court was no longer entertained by gossip. It wanted evidence. And when that evidence started to flow, the story changed. The so-called missing exhibits reappeared in the record. The metadata confirmed authenticity. The timeline aligned perfectly. And Blake's counsel could no longer claim confusion. The order for full disclosure of communications between her PR firm and select journalists was signed, and the fallout began overnight. Everyone who had touched that leak chain started lawyering up. Hollywood's brightest publicists were suddenly unavailable for comment because they all knew that if even one of those messages connected the dots between Blake's office and defamatory media narratives, it would expose a conspiracy to influence the court through deception, and that's when the real panic began. It wasn't just about Baldoni anymore, it was about the system itself, a Hollywood ecosystem built on illusion control and reputation management, collapsing under the weight of its own lies. And the irony was impossible to ignore. The actress who once preached authenticity had become the symbol of manufactured truth. And Justin Baldoni, the quiet filmmaker she accused of manipulation, became the face of resistance against it. Because for the first time, the evidence wasn't on her side, and the media couldn't protect her. And when the next hearing date was announced, the words from the judge echoed like thunder. This court will not be swayed by press tactics. This court deals in facts. And that was the moment everyone knew the storm had just begun. In the end, what began as a headline about a missed deadline transformed into a defining moment of exposure. Not just for Blake Lively, but for the Hollywood machine that helped build her illusion. The court filings stripped away the polish, revealing a strategy rooted in manipulation and narrative control. And as the truth unfolded, the public realized how easily perception can be engineered in an age where stories move faster than facts. Justin Baldoni didn't just defend himself, he dismantled a carefully crafted media weapon piece by piece, and by doing so forced the industry to confront its own hypocrisy. Blake Lively's silence now speaks louder than any of her performances. The same press that once crowned her Untouchable now questions her credibility, and the court that she thought she could influence with timing and spin has turned its focus to proof evidence and accountability in the eyes of the public. This wasn't just a legal victory, it was a cultural reckoning, a reminder that fame no longer guarantees control, and that even in Hollywood, where image is everything, the truth always finds a way to break through the noise.